You hired a real estate professional or you're about to hire one, but what happens next? Today, we're pulling back the curtain with top agent Amanda McKnight to reveal the real work happening behind the scenes of every great real estate transaction. You think your realtor just unlocks doors and fills out paperwork? Think again. From high-stakes negotiations to crisis management and even emotional support, Amanda McKnight does it all. And today she's telling us how and why it matters. How you doing, Amanda?
I'm doing great.
Great. So, Amanda, you're with the Compass and you're with the McKnight team with Compass Real Estate?
I'm actually with Carpenter Kessel, so we're all under Compass.
Okay.
Under the Carpenter Kessel umbrella.
Okay, awesome. How long have you been doing real estate?
Since 2021.
Okay.
So I got my license in 2021 when it was kind of crazy.
Yeah. How's your experience been?
It's great. I mean, I've always had a hustle mentality, and I think in order to be a great agent, you kind of have to keep going. No slack.
No slack. Well, you definitely have a background that's perfect transition. 12 years as a registered nurse.
Correct.
And how was that experience?
It was great. I mean, I was an ICU nurse. I worked in the cath lab, so very high stakes, heart attack patients. And then I also did open heart recovery.
Wow.
So open heart surgery patients, getting them straight from the OR and getting them up to the chair within 12 hours is a fun task.
That's incredible. I mean, yeah, high stakes. I mean, that's real high stakes.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about life and death.
Correct.
And sometimes it feels like that in real estate.
It does, but I mean, I kind of have a different perspective.
I bet. And that's awesome. You've been doing this a while. You have a great background for it, and you're a Florida native?
I am. I'm from St. Augustine.
Cool.
Greatest city in Florida.
The oldest city, right?
Correct.
Although they would argue that at Ponce de Leon Park down in South Melbourne Beach, right?
I think they would argue that, but hey, we have the title.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. So we're talking about all the things that agents do that people don't know about. I mean, or unless you've experienced it firsthand. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you firsthand that there's a lot of things. You all wear a lot of hats. Like we kind of joked about it in the intro.
Yeah.
Crisis management, but it's true. Emotional support.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of these things. So what are some of the things you do for your clients that they may not even realize?
So I like to tell my clients I'm an active agent instead of a passive agent. There's two types. There's somebody that has a full-time job doing something else and they just do this occasionally.
Right.
And this is my bread and butter. This is how I make my money and this is how I put food on the table and pay my mortgage every month. So basically I do everything from A to Z. So once you get under contract, I write the contract, I do the inspections, I schedule everything. I'll give you choices, you tell me who you want to use, and I take it from there. I also get insurance quotes within the inspection period time, which a lot of agents don't do. Nothing like getting a $10,000 insurance quote and finding out you can't afford it after the inspection period. So that's something that you should do as an agent for your clients. So we do everything.
Well, the insurance piece is big because I know from a lender perspective, there's some agents that say, oh, you can get the insurance at the end. And we're thinking, as a lender, we're like, get it now. Get it as soon as you can because you never know what that, like you said, it could be $3,000. You'd be happy, right, these days.
Right.
Or it could be 5, 10, 15. It can make a big difference in affordability.
It makes a huge difference. And I do believe it makes an even bigger difference depending on the person because just like mortgages, it depends on your history. Mm-hmm. If I'm a person who's made a claim every year on my insurance is going to be higher comparative to you if you don't make one. So I think a lot of people don't understand that too.
They don't.
The insurance is based on their personal history with insurance companies.
Well, thank you for being proactive there because I can't tell you I hear it all the time from our operations staff. They haven't got their insurance yet. So it is really important.
You should get it during the inspection period. Avoid crises that way.
Yes, that's good. I've seen deals die because of insurance.
100%.
And typically those are the people that waited.
100%. You should not be getting insurance quotes at week 3.
No.
We should be getting them right after you get a 4-point in 1 minute. And it's super easy to just include the buyer, send those reports off to different insurance providers and get them some quotes.
That is awesome. And I appreciate that. So obviously you had an extensive background in nursing and with some high stakes situations. How do you take your experience that you gained as a nurse to build trust and really foster those real estate relationships and real estate transactions?
So I think the one thing I learned as a nurse is you kind of cannot bring the emotion into it. Mm-hmm. So when you're having to do some very serious things on people in a hospital, you got to take your emotions out and you got to stay calm and you got to be proactive and know what you're doing, methodical and quick.
Right.
So with me, I think that's kind of a lot I brought into the real estate industry. I don't bring my emotions to the table. I don't get attached to transactions, and I don't really react very well. I'm very even killed in a transaction to the client, for sure.
Yep.
And with that, I think it makes me more personable, and it helps me get people to the closing table because they're emotional, because
Sure.
it's a lot of money. And I understand
Yeah.
that it's a lot of money, but sometimes you got to talk them off that ledge.
It is money, and it's a place to live. It's your family. It's all these things. And you're right. It is a big emotion. It's a big purchase. Most people, it's the biggest purchase they'll ever make. Right?
100%.
And if the person they're working with is on edge,
Shaky. Yeah, I wouldn't want to work with somebody like that.
No, it doesn't give you confidence that you're doing the right thing.
And I always, as a nurse, I always like to make my, seeing my patients fun, make it lively, because they're going through scary things too.
Sure.
So I kind of bring that fun aspect too. I like to make showings fun. Nobody should be stressed out in a real estate transaction. You hire a professional, they should be alleviating that stress from you.
Yeah, we have a little saying here is put the stress back on the transaction.
Yeah.
Most of these situations we don't create, the borrowers don't create. They're situations that we all have to deal with, and put it back in the transaction, and stay calm and cool, right?
Right.
And do the right thing time and time again.
100%.
So how do you advocate for your buyers or sellers during negotiations? Like all the things you've learned and the things they may or may not see, like what are some things that you do in these types of situations?
Well, I would say definitely taking the emotion off the table definitely helps with negotiating, for sure. In addition, using market data. I mean, real estate is black and white, kind of. I mean, I would say that you have data to support pricing or you don't. And then if you don't, prove to me why this house is worth this money, right? So for buyers, that's important, because they're going to ask you, well, what do you think of the price?
Sure.
Well, I'm going to go to the comps and I'm going to show you where the pricing should be. And then we submit that to seller and see what the seller says. But I always say a house is only worth what somebody's willing to pay, and the seller doesn't have to sell it.
Right, that's true. It's what's the house worth? I mean, let's look at the data, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter what I think. Let's see what the numbers say, right?
Correct.
But there's always that one seller who says, well, the sun hits my back porch just at the right angle,
Well, they all think they're special because they're emotionally connected to the home.
Right. That is very, very true. Okay, so what should clients expect from their realtor during the entire process? Like what kind of things would you think they should expect?
I think the number one thing is communication, and I think that's what most buyers and sellers are wanting. They just want to be included in the conversation. So communication, I think, is key in any transaction. In addition, and if your agent doesn't communicate, that's a red flag. If your lender doesn't communicate, that's a red flag too,
Right.
And that's why my team personally uses local lenders, because you guys answer your phone.
Right.
We don't recommend Rocket Mortgage or anything like that.
Okay, good. Well, as far as communication, is there such thing as too much communication?
There is. I think there's a fine line, and I like to at least touch base with my clients once a week. Like if we're at the finishing point where we're just waiting for closing day, I just like to check in with them. So my team has a communication guarantee. You'll always hear from me. If you call me, I don't answer, I will either text you and give you a time that I'm going to call you back, or it will be within the next 30 minutes.
Yeah, that's great, because there's nothing worse than, if you're on edge, you're making your first transaction, it's a big purchase, you're buying a home, and you're on edge and you try to communicate with your realtor or your lender, you don't hear back, and that could be a stressful situation, I'm sure.
And I think that's where getting an agent that does this full time is going to be available for you, whereas somebody else may work 9 to 5 and won't get back to you until 5 p.m.
Yeah, that'd be tough.
It's
That'd be
hard.
real tough.
Yeah.
Well, good. Great information. I really enjoyed this. Is there any parting thoughts you have for anyone out there looking to hire a real estate agent?
I would say get somebody that does this every single day, has a proven track record, and is going to look out for your best interest.
Good. You've done an incredible job in this industry, and I wish I shouldn't say I wish more agents, but I wish agents had that theory about the insurance. I do love that one.
Oh yeah.
Because that would help us tremendously. Not self-serving here at all, but well, thank you very much for coming on today, Amanda. If you have any questions for Amanda, we're going to put her contact information down below. If you're not a subscriber, you made it this far, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, like, share, do all those things. We'll see you next time. Thank you.